welcome back to the Lime Brew Show. Today I'm making a triple style Trappist ale. So got it on here, the malts, the hops. Let's start with the malts. So we've got 2.2 kilos of Marisotta, so that's your base malt, and triples, pretty light beer. It's just light and strong, that's all we want, so we don't really want much else in there. I've got 200 grams of Carahel just to add a little bit to it, you know, nothing mega. And then at the bottom, we've got light candy syrup, which is basically just pure white sugar, but you do the invert syrup process to make it easier for the yeast to eat it. I don't know if the syrup does actually do that much in the way of helping the yeast, but I'm going to make the syrup anyway because I enjoy doing it. So that is the malt. It's pretty simple. It's going to be pretty pale yellow beer. I'm going for about 8 to 9% on this one, so hopefully in that region. Hops wise, we've got Magnum. It's just a clean bittering hop, and Saz is nice and spicy, noble flavours, so it should be nice for this kind of beer. And then yeast, I've got Cross Maloof Monk, which is, well, it says monk, so it should be good for Trappist. I've actually got a Dubbel on at the go at the minute, and I'm going to use the yeast cake from that brew. I'm just going to chuck this one straight on top, so we've got a big massive yeast cake, so lots of healthy yeast to get the beer fermenting quicker. Right, so let's weigh out the malts. Put this over here. Don't need you no more. Okay, so look, 2.2 kilos of Marisotta. Let's get that out. Weigh up. Check my scales are on. There we go. That's right. Right, 200 grams more. I mean, that is low. There we go. 2.2 kilos. Marisotta there. It's quite a half a ton. Pretty full. And then what we've got, Carahel. 200 grams of this. Just gives it a little bit of body, a little bit of flavour. Just a little bit more than just plain old base malt. You don't have to do this with a triple. I just fancied a bit more. No. As they're quite strong beers, they need a lot of aging, so I want this to be good. Right, so that's that, 200 grams of Carahel. That's the malts weighed out. All I have to do is make the syrup, which I will do after I've mashed whilst it's boiling. You can just add the syrup because there's no enzymes needed to be converted with the syrup. It's just pure sugar. So, all ready. That's the malts weighed out, lovely jubbly. We've got the hops. Blimey! Right, hoppy hops. So we've got Magnum and Saz. Magnum is 8 grams. That's our bitter in charge, just, you know. Don't want it too bitter, I'm going for around 25 to 30 I've used. Quite that much though. There you go, 8 grams of that, Magnum. Nice clean bitterness from the Magnum. And then Saz, that's that noble hop. Go on, tap it flour. You get that nice spicy Saz flavour. So 15 grams of that. So you want a good bit of flavour. But Come on, you bugger. Screw it. Slightly over. Won't hurt. It's the flavour addition, so we're not going for bitterness with that. It's a low alpha acid hop as well, it says, so it doesn't really give you much bitterness. It's all about the flavour. Alexa! Shush! Ugh, bloody Alexa, what are you doing to me? Alright, so that is the hops and that is the malts, all weighed out. Yeast is already in the fermenter with the other brew, so let's get the mash on. Okay, so the mash water is at 70 degrees. Just getting my bag in the water, ready to mash in. Okay, push it in a bit. There we go. Our malts. Now just time to mash in. Now we want it to be a bit of a drier bit of this, so I've gone to 70 instead of 72, which I normally do when I mash in. I want it a bit lower temperature, so you get more sugars, more starch converted, so you get more sugars. Good amount of malt in this. Malt and sugar. Lovely, and that's good. Give it a little probe to make sure it's hot enough, or not too hot even. No, either or. Too hot or too cold, both are bad. 63.9. So dead in the middle there, so should get lots of sugars. Let's look at that mash. Lovely creamy looking. No lumps. Right, now let's put this away for 60 minutes, maybe 90, and we'll get the sparge on. Right, now the mash is on, I've got my 600 grams of sugar ready for my candy syrup. So all I'm going to do, put it in the pan. Quite a lot there, got to be careful not to boil this over. Should be okay. Cream of tartar, we use that when it gets to temperature, just about half a teaspoon. And just need a little bit of water. Help dissolve the sugar. Spoon, that's all I need. Okay, so now what we've got to do is get the sugar melted and up to 120 degrees, and at which point we'll add the cream of tartar. Okay, already melting. Just need a little bit of water. The more you put in, the more you'll actually need to boil off, because you have to get rid of all the water. This is just to stop it burning whilst it melts. So sugar's beginning to melt now, starting to bubble as that water evaporates. Let's get that thermometer in. Oh, bit of malt in there, push you. Okay, what are we at? 62 there, not quite, just give it a few more minutes. Now with triples you want like 20% of the malt bill to be this simple syrup sugar or candy syrup, or the hard candy if you want to buy it yourself. Yeah, 20% is the recommended amount of sugar for it. So it seems like a lot of sugar to put in your beer, but for the style it just works. It's really good. It's nice and strong, light and dry, and the yeast gives it lots of lovely flavours. As long as you don't ferment it too hot, you won't end up with rocket fuel. Because I think I did one of my first brews was a triple, because it's one of my favourite styles. You know, and I wanted to try it straight away before I actually knew what I was doing. Anyway, we had a heat wave, and I think my yeast was rated to about 22 degrees, and I think it actually got up to 35 in the cupboard I used to brew in, fermenting rather. 35 degrees, maybe even 40 at some point, which is crazy high for a yeast. So it gave loads of harsh alcohols. It was basically like rocket fuel. And I tried to age it, you know, age your beer out and they smooth and mellows them out. But it really was just the fusel alcohols that had been created by the yeast due to the high temperature, and they will never age out. So I ended up throwing a good half of that batch. I mean, it was only I used to do 5 litres then, so I'm doing 10 litres now. But you know, you've got 5 litres of undrinkable beer because you've fermented it too hot, and it's really not. It's just not worth it. So at the minute, I think my kitchen sits at about, what's my fermenter saying? Between 18 and 20. Obviously I've got stuff boiling at the minute, so it gets the temperature up. And my yeast is rated, I think, 15 to 22. So, you know, at the minute it's a nice happy medium in my kitchen with no heat, no temperature control. So pretty perfect to brew this beer. Right, see it's bubbling now, all that water's evaporating. And it's going to get slowly hotter, so it's at the point where we want to add our cream of tartar. So that cream of tartar is what converts the sugar into inverted sugar, which is just a more simple version of sugar for the yeast to eat. So it keeps the yeast nice and happy. Again, you know, with the whole yeast flavours in this beer, you don't, and the strength, you don't want it to be harsh, so you want to keep the yeast nice and happy. So this syrup is what, you know, helps get the strength up without giving you horrible harsh flavours. I think you can use normal sugar. I don't think there's too much difference, but for me there's enough difference, so I wouldn't risk it in my brews. You can try it in yours, you know, or you can stand there for half an hour making syrup, which, you know, half an hour whilst the beer is mashing for an hour. It's not really too much of a compromise. You know, what are you going to do otherwise? Sit around and wait. So whilst I'm waiting, I'm making. There we go, 120 there. Let's take that out. Cream of tartar. There. About that much will do. Not too precise with this. Get it in, get it stirred. And I want to keep this between 120 and 135, I think, for 20 minutes whilst it inverts. What am I saying now? 11:21. Yeah, 20 minutes once it inverts. Obviously, if you wanted it darker for like your doubles and your quads, or even other beers, you can use this in other beers if you fancy, over sugar, you know. Gives it a bit of caramel flavour when you have darker ones. There you go, smash that up. Don't know why it's not mixing. Come on. Yeah, the longer you cook this sugar after the 20 minutes, 20 minutes is the minimum for conversion. After that, the longer you cook it, the darker it gets, the more like toffee, caramelly flavours you're going to get. It's going to get darker, it's going to colour your beer as well. Do a really dark one for my quad. Just keep going and going, maybe another hour after the 20 minutes is up. You just keep going, and when you're at your desired level, you can just stop. You know, wouldn't recommend tasting it because you will burn your face off. But yeah, ended up with a litre of syrup last time. I used for a few brews. I'm just doing it as I need it for this one because it's just a simple syrup, and I don't really tend to use the simple one other than in the triple. Okay, so that's it, 20 minutes. Turn it off. Just leave it aside whilst you do the rest of your beer. There we go, you see, nice yellow, sort of, not quite honey, or maybe just a light honey kind of colour. That will cool down on itself. And we'll just dilute this with some wort when we're doing the boil. And that's that. Belgian candy syrup. Okay, so it's been an hour. Got the mash over here, mashing away. I've made my syrup in the meantime. See that it's all gloopy. It's really nice and clear. Ooh, that looks good. Good enough to eat. I'm just going to start the sponge now. So I've got this here, my little old fermenting bucket. Just going to turn that tap around. And add my tubing here. My sponge water's already heated. I think. You know. water up. Well, not quite ready. Let's give it another few minutes to heat up. Guessy. In the meantime, we can start squeezing all this sugar out of the bag. Where's my gloves? There we are. Glove time because it's hot. There we go. Out it comes. Here, 60. Another minute. Let's get this down on the floor, ready for the tap. So it'll be all set up, ready. Okay. We'll stick a bit in, get it started. Handy to have the thermometer in, wouldn't it? Okay. You want that sparge water to be nice and hot because it makes the sugar easier to rinse off. So if you use cold water, you're going to not get as much sugar off the grains, which means less sugar in your beer. Especially this one being 8 or 9% hopefully. We want as much as possible. I mean, you always want as much as possible, but yeah. Don't want a weak triple. What's the point? Right, that's that open. There we go. Keep that on the boil. Right, so what have we got? Boil, we got the hops here, the Magnum and the Saz ready, 60-minute and a 50-minute edition. Also got this syrup I've made earlier, just cooling down, getting real thick there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to mix in some of this wort. And dilute it so it's not so thick. Okay. So we don't scorch the bottom. Oh, it's really thick. See how hard that was to stir? Now imagine that going into there, into the wort, and just sitting on the bottom. It will just spread out and completely burn the bottom of your pan and ruin the flavour of your beer. That's why I'm doing this. So bit more here. At the end of the sparge water. So it's still not even dissolved in there. Really quite something. Bit more. Hopefully that should be enough. Oh yeah, much better. Still got a big thick bit on the spoon. So that's enough now. Get that in. Still some left, we'll just keep the sparge water going into there, just keep getting all we can of the syrup out. It's crazy how thick it is. That's my big spoon, and make sure the bottom's not opened. Probably should have made the syrup a bit later, so it was warmer towards the end of the match day. Or even now, whilst it's boiling, I could be making the syrup, which is what I did with my Dubbel last time, and that diluted straight in. So lesson learned, I guess. You know, that was a struggle. No sense in struggling if you don't need to. So that's how we'll proceed in the future. Carry on with the sparge, just squeeze the bag, get as much out as possible. Whilst the wort comes up to the boil. Surprising how much liquid is left on the grains. Just keep squeezing and squeezing until so it's done. There we go. Now this just needs to go up to the boil. Get my lid on. There we go. So yeah, at the moment 70. About 75, so we've got to leave it. So it's about 90. And keep an eye on it. Wort's up to the boil now, so time to add the first edition of hops, Magnum, 8 grams of this, so chuck it in, and give that 45 minutes before we add the next hops. Just give it a good stir, make sure it doesn't boil over. That's 45 minutes down. We've got the 15 grams of sass to drop in. 15 more minutes of the boil. So give it a quick stir. Almost ready to cool. Ooh, right. Can't find today the bottle and the brew, and I'm still tasting the sample of the Dubbel, which is pretty good. Right. Anyway, beer is done. Gas is off. Time to cool it. Not even got my ghetto chilling bottles out yet, but they will be here. Alright, bottle's ready. Give it a quick little rinse and a wipe. Make sure there's no freezery bits on them. Chuck them in. Ooh, quite a lot of volume today, for some reason. Dang. Can't even fit this one in. Well. Two left to do. I don't know why I've got so much liquid. That's annoying. What that tells me is I've got a less strong beer than I intended, because I've got more liquid, less volume, but more beers. To be honest, if I get maybe a 7% out of this, I'll be pretty happy. So, you know, can't go wrong with a strong 7% beer, can you? Get this into the sink. Get some ice on it. It's heavy. Right, got the beer in the cooling bath, lots of ice packs, one less bottle than normal. Probably got an extra, maybe an extra litre in there than I intended, so 12 litre brew, which is very unfortunate because I wanted it strong, but we'll see what the hydrometer tells us, what the gravity reading is when it's cooled. Just give it another half hour, say, to cool, and I'll check on it. Ooh, sticky floor. We are all cooled down now to just above 20 degrees. I think it's like 21. So I've taken a gravity read in here. You can see past the bubbles. 10:06. 6.3, I'm going to say. Not 6.3, 6.6, sorry. So, that is my triple threat brew day then. A little sniff. Smells good, very malty. Nice colour. And just have to pour this in the fermenter. Already got the yeast in there from the previous brew, cross my leaf monk. All poured in. Hops and all. Squeeze those out in a second. And then we've got them up the floor. You hear that? I've been walking sugary wort all over the floor. So, we'll keep that done. Okay, what should we end up with? Close to 12 there, 12 litres. I'm aiming for 11, so I've got a whole litre more than I wanted, which I'm going to dilute it by 10%. So, not as strong as I wanted, but still should be pretty strong. What's my previous beer? No, 10.58 and they've got me 6.3, so you know, still pretty strong beer. I'm going to do the calculator in a minute. See what it's actually, well, what it's projected to be. I don't know, the yeast might eat more sugars, you know, got a good amount of yeast in here this time. Might go crazy and eat more sugars than I thought. Might have been a nice cool mash, so we've got more simpler sugars for the yeast to eat. I might end up really dry and strong and blow your head off. I think it's going to blow your head off anyway. But that's all hot, squeezed out, squoze, some people like to say. Squoze it, right. Get the lid on. Quick stir. Some oxygen in there. Get all that yeast from the bottom mixed in. Because the other beer had the same hops as this one, we shouldn't get any hop flavours from that, and also, well, you know, obviously the same yeast, but we want no same flavour from it, so it should be, I shouldn't get any contamination from the darker beer. Usually go from a light beer to a dark beer because, you know, there's the darkness will contaminate it, but I poured up everything from that and it just left the yeast, so I think we're going to do pretty well. Need my airlock, which is here in the sanitizing solution. Okay. What's it saying on here? Saying 22 degrees. So that should get fermentation started pretty quick. Let's put that tap up there now. Put this in the corner. Leave it for 2 weeks or longer. That's my triple threat. We've got 12.5 litres, so blimey, a lot more than I thought, but you know, more beer, always good. Still pretty damn strong. Brew day went pretty well. I don't know why I've got more liquid than normal. Baffles me. I'm going all up and down recently, so I need to find a nice like medium where it's coming out as I intend. But never mind. It's all in there. Give it 2 weeks to ferment, and then it will be bottling day, or I can leave it a bit longer, let it age a bit in the fermenter, depending on what I'm doing. Won't hurt it, as long as it's not like too long. You know, I won't give it longer than a month on the yeast. But yeah, that's it. I'm going to get my calculator now. Done my calculations now for my triple threat, written down the brew day, as you should always do. Got my brew house up to 89% there. See the last one, I only got 75%. So, apart from having more liquid, you know, higher volume than I intended, I've actually done a really good brew day. So if that was the right amount of liquid, let's put it there, 12.5. Yeah, if it ended up with 11 like I wanted, it would have been a way stronger beer. At the moment, it's looking to be about 7.6 when it's done. So we've just got to leave it for 2 weeks and let the yeast work its magic, and then, you know, take a gravity reading, see where it is.
Hey DJ, give me a beat. It's the Lion Brew Show. I cook too. Do some gardening and foraging stuff. Terrible raps. Like, subscribe, and all that crap.